elected. So at this time, I'll call the meeting to order and ask everyone to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So our first order of business is our school committee reorganization. The next order is to have our school committee chair elected. And this does not require a second. So do we have a nomination for chair?
I nominate Eric Crane for chairman.
Okay, so we do not need a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Our next order of business is the election of the secretary of the committee. Do I have a nomination for the secretary of our committee?
I will nominate Art Skarmas.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So we're going to take one moment to actually do the physical reorganization of our meeting for just one moment.
Do I need to move? Why do I have to move?
There we go. Thank you.
Why can't the secretary stay down the
God was
end?
big.
No, I don't need one.
But you have to give it back.
All right. Well, thank you to my colleagues for the opportunity to chair this year. I hope we have a busy and productive year. That's the intent anyway. I would first like to welcome our new members, Robin Doherty and Alice Campbell, to the school committee. We're glad to have you with us, and we know that you'll be contribute wonderful things to the school committee this year and in the future. So thank you very much, and congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, so the next order of business would be to appoint a school attorney. Does anyone have a nomination for appointing a school attorney?
Are we appointing
Long and DePietro.
Yes. So I nominate Long and DePietro to be the school attorney.
Need a second?
Second.
Long and DePietro's been our firm for quite a while. We've worked more closely with Roseanne DePietro this year. But, I think she's done a terrific job advising us through some interesting times. So with that, unless there's any further discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
So it's a vote, and we will appoint Long and DePietro. I'm going to direct the superintendent to check on the school liability insurance. And we'll establish a time and place of regular meeting. The time will typically be the second Monday of every month, as we have been doing. There will be times things come up, sometimes we have to move it around, but basically second Monday of every month. And having thought about it a bit and sort of anticipating this, I think at this point we will plan on having a July meeting, as we did last year, given everything that has been happening, the need to find out how we're doing in terms of catching students up and what the plans are for the fall. It seems good to have at least, even if it's a truncated agenda, that we'll have a meeting in July. Okay. For subcommittees for the next month, let's just keep all of the subcommittees and liaisons as they are. What was Dave liaison to, Lisa?
Just one moment. I'm just going to open up that document.
The Wellness Advisory.
Yes, thank you.
What was it?
Wellness, the Wellness Committee.
Wellness. Do we anticipate a meeting of the Wellness Committee this?
Before June? No.
No, okay. So we can allow that to go till next month?
Yes.
Do we anticipate a meeting of the Policy Committee?
No, we met with policy and said we would do the next meeting after the June meeting.
Okay.
Anticipating that it takes a month usually.
All right, so what I would ask is for over the next month or so, I'll reach out to you or you reach out to me and just tell me if you have any interest in the particular subcommittees. We are going to add a couple of subcommittees for this year, and I'll tell you a little bit about what I have in mind. One is going to be a subcommittee for curriculum and assessment. And the basic idea is that as a school committee, I think we can support the strategic plan of the school system by trying to get a little more involved in an information sharing kind of way. We all know that for instance, when it comes to curriculum and assessment, we know that it is the job of the administration to choose curriculum, to figure out what sorts of assessments will be used to evaluate those. But I think we can take a deep dive from a school committee standpoint, share information back and forth between the school committee, the parents that we hear from, and the administration to make sure that we fully understand curriculum choices, to help parents fully understand curriculum choices. So I'll have a more precise sort of marching orders for that subcommittee when we meet next. That's my intention. The other one will be, again, in support of our strategic plan, an equity subcommittee. And my initial thought on that is a fairly broad, again, information sharing, understanding what's happening, exchange of ideas. And so what I envision for that is maybe 1 month that committee would meet with, obviously with the superintendent's knowledge, a building principal, let's say the high school principal, and talk about equity programs in depth, what they're seeing, what challenges that they face. Maybe the next month you meet with the middle school principal. Maybe a month after that you would meet with a series of building principals from the elementary schools, maybe in one meeting to talk about the specific issues to them. Maybe once the new student services director has a chance to settle in, committee might meet with the student services director, because obviously equity includes, issues beyond just race, ethnicity, sexual preference, sexual identity, all of those things. So again, the idea being to exchange ideas, take ideas back and forth, and make sure that there's good communication, that we understand what's happening, and that parents understand what's happening. So again, if you have an interest in either of those committees, please let me know over the next month or so. But for this month, we'll continue with what we're doing, so that means you and I still in the negotiation. I know that's your favorite thing.
It's awesome.
All right. Bear with me 1 sec here. Do you mind staying again for this month as the primary signatory author? I think
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay, good. So other than that, again, thank you all for the opportunity. I'll try and do the best job I can for you and let everybody have their say. For our new members, one of the things Lisa, can we look into the open meeting law training? Is there a training for new school committee members and or new board of select members?
We don't have, I don't know of one just yet from the town.
Okay, yeah.
For members, I was able to meet with our 2 new school committee members and shared information from MASC about charting the course.
Okay.
Through MASC, our school committee association, and open meeting law would be part of that. But
That's
I could
fine.
check in with town hall to see if they
Sure.
are planning on something for the coming fall.
If they're not, I just want to make sure that our new members have the resource for
Thank
that,
you.
Because it's pretty straightforward, but by the same token, sometimes you end up saying, well, can I do that, can I not do that? And we certainly want to help everybody along the way. Again, by way of introduction for our new members, we operate by Robert's Rules of Order. We're not, sticklers. That document, Robert's Rules, is a long list of different kinds of motions and things that you can make, very few of which actually come up. But basically, the voting works this way. The superintendent will make a recommendation on a matter that we are required to vote on. After the motion, there is a second. Assuming there is a second, there is discussion. If there's nothing changes during the discussion, that is to say no amendment is brought, then the vote is taken on the motion. It's officially made and put in favor. If there is an amendment, then it sort of becomes a separate process within itself where the discussion turns to the amendment. The amendment is voted on, and based on the results of that vote, the amendment either does or does not become the main motion, and we go back to vote. I don't know the last time we had an amendment here. Many times during the discussion, what will happen is someone will say, gee, I could support this if X, and the person making the motion says, you know what, I'm fine, and I'll restate my motion. So generally, but if it comes up, I just wanted you to know the basic process. All right? So with that, why don't we move on to, unless I missed anything, Lisa, I don't think I have.
No, but with our team effort, Keith was able to look at the town's website, and the town does have open meeting law trainings, and there's an evening
Actually,
one.
directly through the state.
Oh, through the state.
There's Thursday, May 20th, 12:30 to 2, Wednesday, June 9th, 9:30 to 11, or Monday, June 21st, 6 to 7:30 p.m. So we can send that link
Thank you.
to you
Great.
guys.
That's
Thank
perfect.
you.
Thank you for checking.
Thank you, the state.
All right, so items of interest to the superintendent, school committee, and community.
Thank you. We have some pictures to show you. As Mary pulls up the pictures, we would like to share about a month ago, we shared that Jeff Bartlett, one of our health teachers at the middle school here, was the state health educator of the year, and we are very proud of him that he has now been announced as the 2021 National Health Educator Teacher of the Year through Shape America. So we congratulate Jeff, and we see his work that with our children and students here in Damas, and are very proud of him, and honored that a national organization has recognized that for him also. We're just taking one moment for the,
It won't take my code.
Dexter.
Dexter, it's coming back.
It was on.
it was, okay. Last week, we had some recognitions last week with Staff Appreciation Week. We also have Nurses Day was last week, and also, Keith, this is relatively new, School Lunch Heroes.
Started last year.
If you could tell them a little bit about that for a moment while we get
So,
some
right.
pictures up.
It's usually embedded as part of the Teacher Appreciation Week as a statewide initiative. There's actually nominations that you can do for statewide school lunch heroes, similar to the Crossing Guard appreciation that we shared last month. So this is specifically dedicated to school lunch food service workers, and is so appreciative to all of, especially our elementary schools, who went out of their way to make sure that the cafeteria workers felt very appreciated that day, from poems to flowers to all sorts of different recognition for the cafeteria workers.
Okay, I think what we could do is, if it's okay, we'll come back to the pictures in just one moment. And move to, I would say if there's any other items of interest from school committee or the community.
Okay, so any items of interest from anyone on the school committee? You see that? And from the community members gathered here. Vast audience here.
Our community members are our high schoolers and high school principal and Alex Grover, our choral teacher, that they will be part of presentations today. Yes. Okay. So then, hoping that we could move on to information from our student rep. Max, updates? Do you have, and it's okay if you don't have anything specific for today, we just wanted to double check, because we want to also thank you while you're here with us today.
Yeah, no specific updates. We've been continuing our meetings and having pretty good numbers. We've been touching into more definitions on more less tangible concepts like social justice and discrimination, and some of those more difficult topics for high schoolers, but no specific updates.
Great. Thank you very much, Max. And Max is a senior, so has been able to be with the Danvers School Committee for 2 years. We want to take a moment to thank you, Max, and wish you the best on your next educational journey into college. We greatly appreciate all of your efforts in sharing about the 7 elementary schools, and in particular this year sharing about the high school. And Mr. Crane, as chair, would you like to?
Sure.
Great. Next, we have a thank you for you. I'm not sure, like the hand shaking. For today. Thank you, Joel.
Thanks for all you've done.
Thank you very much, Max. Thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, and Mary has
I have it all.
pitches for us. We thank our PACs at all of our schools, our administrators, and making last week special for all of our educators last week. Here are some more pitches with some of our nurses.
Wanted to take a minute to thank you for all that you do for them, and they wanted to share a poem with you.
Oh, I love that.
Are you ready, guys? Yeah. 2, 3. We're thankful for our nurses and all the work they do. From bloody nose to ice pack, they work the whole day through. They never ask for glory, but they do their work so well. I hope that will encourage before they say farewell. They help us when we are not well, and when we have the flu, and when we've fallen down, they give us much love too. There's so much work that we don't see that they do all day long. And it's because of our school nurse that all of us are strong. Thank you, all right, they have little cards for you too.
Okay,
Mayor wanted to take a minute to thank you.
and then our school lunch heroes. One more slide. Oh, a video for you.
Oh, hey, buddy. Thank you. Thank you, Matthew. That's so nice of you. Up the juice here. Thank you, Angel. That's so nice.
20 years at Norton.
Oh, thank you. Oh, look at that. Beautiful. You did a purple. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Love you, Michelle. Love you. Thank you. Everybody give her a nice
Thank you, and thank you, Mary, for showing that for us. Thank you.
There's one more slide, so.
Oh, and there's one more
couldn't get
slide.
past that. And there's all the lunch heroes.
For our cafeteria workers, it really has looked different this year, and they have supported in so many ways of individualizing lunches and serving lunches in different ways. So we thank everyone for making our school a special place, our school district. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Dana, and everybody on, all the staffs and our lunch folks and everybody at each school who's done so much, especially this year, to get our students and our staff through this year. So now we'll move on to information from the superintendent, Dr. Dana.
Thank you. We have 5 items this evening, and first we're going to begin with personnel updates. And we do have some changes in administration this year. So at this meeting, I would like to introduce our new Holton Richmond principal, Brendan Norton. I'd like to talk about his experience for one moment and then ask Brendan to come up, and he has a few words to share also. Brendan is coming with 13 years of experience at the middle school level, 8 years as the assistant principal at the Parker Middle School in Reading, and also 5 years as a history teacher at the John F. Kennedy Middle School in Waltham. Additionally, he has experience at the high school level as a history teacher at a private school, and we look forward to having Brendan's experience, what he shared with us about his beliefs about teaching and learning are aligned with our goals here in our district, and for him to be able to work with Mr. Federico, a very unique opportunity where Adam will be at the high school. So we're really looking forward to having a cohesive 6 through 12 learning experience for all of our students. So welcome, Brendan. Thank you. Come on up.
Thank you very much. Good evening, members of the school committee. Thank you for welcoming me here tonight. I'm honored to have been chosen as the new principal for the Holton Richmond Middle School. It's a fantastic school, and I've had the opportunity to meet some community members already so far. On March 16th, I was invited to the HRMS PAC meeting and had a great question and answer session with parents that night. And on March 19th, I came and met students and staff members here at the school. I'm really looking forward to more opportunities over the course of the summer to start meeting more of the community members, more of the staff members, and certainly, most importantly, more of the kids. As I continue the process of transitioning into my role, I look forward to, additionally, I look forward to being a part of the hiring process as I start to prepare for my transition on July 1st. So far, the current administration has done a great job of taking that process and moving it forward for me and for the rest of the school. I'm looking forward to working with Adam Federico in conjunction with the high school staff to create a cohesive academic program that will benefit all students in the school at Danvers. Principal Federico's understanding of the middle school and our ability to work as a team will be particularly important as the district continues to work with the equity work that has already begun. We will need to address issues through a willingness to examine our policies and practices with an eye on equity. The administration and staff have already laid a great foundation, and I am looking forward to joining a community of educators that is ready to engage in this process. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me here tonight.
Brendan, don't run off. I'm going to see if anyone has any comments. Any comments or questions for Brendan that are intended not to scare him off?
Well, I might. I have an incoming 6th grader.
Yep.
So I look forward to working with you and meeting with you and getting his perspective on how things are with the transition. And I'm sure you're aware, but a lot of 5th grade families are worried about the transition to middle school after coming off of a really tough year for these kids. So always interested to hear some of your ideas and how to make that transition comfortable for them and families as well.
So
you don't
I
have
think
to answer me right now. It's a conversation we can continue to have.
I think it's a difficult time for everybody to transition from all schools, and every kid is making a major transition right now. So I think being thoughtful about how kids are transitioning from one building to another is certainly important. So I'd love to have that conversation.
Mr. Scott?
I don't want to scare him anymore, so I'll just say welcome to the district.
Thank you very much.
Now we
Dr.
need to
Doherty.
get him a Falcon mask, like you have.
Oh, there you go.
That's what I was going to say. Welcome. Thank you. We will be in with our new school committee members too, thinking, right, the different things that we have that say the Falcon on it and the Holton Richmond Hawks. Yes.
I was given a Falcon mask. It is currently in the wash right now. I did make sure to get one that was Danvers blue.
Well, you're supposed to wash these?
Jeff?
No, I will echo what everyone said and say welcome. And, you know, we've got the strategic plan discussion coming up, so I think that'll be a good segue into seeing where we're at and you know, some things that we can do to take the school forward. So welcome and thank you.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. Brendan, welcome. If you've been in the middle school either as a teacher or an assistant for a long time, so that can be a challenging time in life for the students. You know, I would say they're young enough to still sometimes not make the best choices, but old enough that they're willing to take more chances. So it can be a challenge, and I'm glad you'll have Adam among others to work with to help you out. So we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much. I'm really excited to start.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brendan. Thank you.
Dr. Dana?
Thank you. Next, we have our strategic plan update as we've moved from educating during a pandemic of now what have we learned over the last year and how do we revise, regroup on different pieces of our strategic plan. So we do have, I think, 4 parts. Mary,
sorry.
do you,
I'm sorry.
Mary has the button to click the slides for us. Thank you, Mary. 5 parts to our presentation this evening. But in 4 of them, we'll take a pause after a chunk of the information, and then Mr. Crane open it back up to school committee to ask specific questions, especially we have guests from our high schools, so for each of their parts to be able to, instead of putting 4 different presentations on our school committee agenda.
That sounds good.
So an opportunity tonight to talk about our priorities again, to be able to take a look at closing out this school year with our senior activities and graduation, look at the upcoming summer programming and collaboration with our recreation program. Then we want to begin to share with our school committee the planning for the 2021 school year, especially with the use of the ESSER funding. It's a large amount of money over a 3-year period, and Keith will bring us through that. And then Mary will talk about the work with our administrative team in looking at how to best use the funding from the federal government through the state. And then we want to end with really looking at the future, but starting that work with Portrait of a Graduate. And we have guests from our high school that will talk about the advisory program moving into a community meeting being revised, and then also a Danvers Public Schools Council that I'll talk about at the end to involve community as we continue to move forward. So looking at our priorities, we've shared this circle at different times during this year, and we have revised it. In our strategic plan 3 years ago, we had engaged students as one of our priorities. We really now looking at the building relationships at the core, from our core values, moving to courageous caring, really looking at the equity and especially racial equity. And with that, the engaged student needs to be at the center of all we do. And then there's 3 priorities, as Mr. Crane spoke about earlier: the coherent curriculum instruction and assessment, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and then having that foundation of our safe and supportive learning environments. So as we continue our work and re-look at our strategic plan coming off of the pandemic, we will look at it in these 3 areas. Some of the things that you'll hear tonight is around the multiple tiered system of support, that we want to look at in-class support for acceleration. We understand the word learning loss, but we really want to about moving forward and about acceleration also for all students. We will talk about a culturally responsive practice leadership academy through the Department of Ed that we have been accepted to. We will continue working with ADL, and again, through the pandemic, we were able to work with our administrators, but the programming for students was on hold. We do have a planning meeting coming up in the next week. We'll also look around with equity for equity audits of our systems and procedures. And one of them will be looking at our high school courses, the leveling, having access for all. Coming again out of the pandemic, looking at meetings and the use of technology, having parents have more access to different meetings if we are able to use the technology. And then also information to parents, for example, a DocuSign, the professional development with using technology between Zoom meetings and the in-district meetings. And then we'll also continue looking at policy and handbook audits, and part of that is on tonight's agenda. The second priority is the curriculum and coherent curriculum instruction and assessments. We will continue with our student-centered curriculum programs that are research-based. Some of them are listed up here on this slide, and this presentation will be on our website tomorrow also for the community. We'll continue with our multiple-tiered system of support, and Mary gives the example of a year ago, March, we had just finished some training, we had early release day, we were really starting to work on it, and then schools were closed and we went to remote learning. So we will be picking that up again. Again, there were things that did happen during the school year, but the coordination of it, the coherence, needs to be in place for September. We'll continue with our formative assessment for results, the FAR cycle, and high-impact teaching teams, and really it all works when we have the collective efficacy and everyone working together and moving forward together. The third priority is our safe and supportive learning, and we will continue with our SEL committee with our teachers. Advisory at the high school you'll hear more about today. The Project Hawk at the middle school is also being looked at, and then Open Circle at the elementary school has been our curriculum, but we do need to continue looking at other curriculums as that curriculum is not being supported through the college, Wellesley College, going into the future. And then all of this has to happen in culturally responsive learning environments and having our teaching practices be culturally responsive. Okay, so with that, we then get to talk about the end of this 2021 school year and the senior activities and graduation. So we'll ask Dr. Colombino and two of our class officers to join him.
Good evening. Thanks for having us tonight. So I just wanted to start real quick before I introduce our two student speakers to thank our student officers, Liana O'Brien, Rob Avola, Dylan Driscoll, and Tommy Purcell and Ashley Kukuru, who are here tonight. They've been working tirelessly. Most senior years, you kind of have a format and a layout of what senior year is going to look like, what graduation, what prom is going to look like. And this year, without saying it's been very different. They've been working tirelessly all year with our class advisor, Mr. Regis, as well, around making a really creative and innovative way to, I think, to both acknowledge some of the loss that the families and students feel, but also to really be able to look forward and to be able to figure out a really great way to celebrate our seniors. We're really excited about the plan we have, and as just as one teaser, so we don't forget, graduation we will have 4 guests, 2 groups of 2, so that is a really important detail. And just to close out, just really wanted to thank all the feedback from our families and our students that we've had. It's been really helpful in being able to incorporate that to our plan. So without further ado, here's our class officers.
Hi, I'm Ashley Kukuru, and I'm the class treasurer. The first event coming up is next Friday. It's our senior prom/concert. It's going to be held just for our class, no other outside guests from other grades or schools, and it's going to be on the turf. It's going to be the cheapest way, and being outside will be able to make sure everyone has a spot. It's from 5:45 to 9. The attire is going to be, we gave students an option, semi-formal or formal. There's still going to be a promenade, which is a good tradition that we wanted to keep going, and that's going to be outside the academic wing, so not near the turf, but parents can come and watch, and they'll get their name called. So it's a good tradition to keep alive. And then and there'll be food trucks there as well from a few different vendors. So students are pretty excited about it. I think that's it.
Hello, my name is Tommy Purcell, and I am the senior class president. So for one of our next events, it's Senior Day, and that'll be the day where students come through the Fieldhouse Loop, where we will pick up our yearbooks, caps and gowns, and it'll be similar to our t-shirt pickup. I'm not sure if you were aware of that. It's what we did in the summer. Everyone came through, picked up their class t-shirts and signed a banner saying that they were proud to be a part of the class, and that's going to be on Tuesday, June 8th. And we'll have Cookie Monster at the end, help celebrate and make it more of a fun event instead of just picking up the graduation requirements. Following that, we will have our graduation practice. The practice will be in cohorts similar to like the school year was. And on the last day, we'll have a senior barbecue, which will be in the, I believe it's the field near the tennis courts and the atrium side of the school. So there'll be plenty of space for everyone to enjoy. And then we have the scholarship night, which is the night before prom, usually held in the auditorium, I believe, but like most things, it's moved outside this year. And that will be at 5 o'clock from the turf. And it'll be similar to like it always is. If you're fortunate enough to get called, you'll come down for the event, and we'll go from there for that.
And of course, the last thing is going to be our graduation on June 12th at 10 a.m. And luckily, we're able to get 4 guests, which is exciting. 2 groups of 2, so I believe it's going to be 2. They're going to be sitting in separate areas initially, but 2 like in the front and 2 farther back in the turf. I don't know what else to say about graduation, but it's exciting. It's coming up.
Thank you very much. And with graduation, because it is outdoors, we will have Sunday as the backup day for graduation also. So again, we really do appreciate all of our efforts by our seniors, the flexibility, their perseverance through this school year, and trying to keep some traditions, but also being very open to looking at new ways of celebrating their senior year together. Thank you. So at this point, we would like to take a pause before going on to the next part of the presentation and open it up to school committee,
Sure.
especially with our seniors here to ask any questions or comments.
All right, Robin, any questions or comments? Okay. Alice?
I just commend you guys. I think after your junior year and then going into your senior year, you guys all showed such resiliency. So I commend you guys for coming up with this plan and try to bring some normalcy to the end of your senior year. Do you feel that anything is missing? Was there one thing that you wish you could have done besides everything being outside?
I know traditionally they have the project graduation and some other senior events, but obviously due to the circumstances, I'm pretty fortunate for what we were able to put together. And so I'm just happy with what we have.
Well, it's
Dr.
great.
Colombino and the other administration, they've been very helpful, and I know they want the best for us.
Yeah. Well, congratulations, to all the seniors. I think you've developed a really great way to end your school year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff?
Yeah, I would like to thank you for the work you put in as well. As elected officials, I think you are well aware it's been a difficult year, and so ordinarily this is a lot of extra work, and so I'm sure balancing the resources that you had to work with as well as the timing for everything wasn't easy in a fluid situation which is constantly changing. So I just want to thank you again for your time and efforts with that, because it's never easy, and this year has been extraordinary. So thanks.
Thank you.
Arthur?
No, nothing really to add. I agree with what Jeff said. I just want you guys to have fun, have a good time.
And for me, look, we'll say prayers for good weather for you, so all of the outdoor events are able to go forward. So I'm keeping our fingers crossed. So thank you for all the work, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the next slide has our summer programming, and Keith will take us through this.
So you'll see a kind of a timeline as we work through our presentation of going from now through the future. So you'll saw the end of the year celebrations first, and now for our summer programming, working with Mary and the Recreation Department, we were able to submit and receive a grant from the Department of Education to help fund academic enhancements for the summer. So those will be coupled with 2 existing programs. The idea was to enhance an existing program with academic components. So with our Falcons program and our Journeys program, the Falcons program is for our elementary students, and the Journeys program is for middle school. So the Falcons program will have ELA and SEL programming built into their standard day as part of their activities. And then in the morning, there'll be an optional earlier start if you'd like to participate in the math program. And then for Journeys, as the kids get older, we really took a project-based learning approach. So that part of their academic enhancement will be through using those learning techniques. The academic enhancements will run for 6 weeks. Those programs both run longer than that, but the academic components will be for those time periods. And thank you, obviously, to Mary and to Dave Mountain and Nick Campion for working collaboratively with the school department to make this work within their existing programs. Danvers High School also offers summer school for rising 9th through 12th graders in course-specific areas, and then we're going to look at additional ELA and math tutoring for rising 1st to 8th graders that may not be interested in the full Falcons program or Journeys program. For all of the programs provided, even through recreation, there are scholarships available for families in need, so we encourage anyone that has financial hardships to please reach out to their building administrator or to the recreation department to express those needs, and we'll work with those individual families.
Thank you very much, Keith. And I was supposed to keep the two of them together and having our high school students up there. I kept that. So if we could do the same thing. Any questions or comments before we get into planning for next year? Thank you.
Alice, we'll start with you this time.
Can you just repeat for the parents again the financial aid and scholarships available? Because I do know that both of those programs are at a cost for Falcons and Journeys specifically.
Yeah, so for both of those programs, they are run through the Danvers Recreation Department, but working collaboratively with them. There are scholarships available for families in need. So you could approach it in 2 different ways. One would be contacting Recreation directly. The other option would be to contact your building principal, who would also be happy to assist you with that process for families that are in need but want to participate in the programs.
Great, thank you. And then will students be identified in terms of needing that additional support through the summer? Will teachers reach out to family members and let them know if a student would benefit from it?
Yes, our elementary curriculum director and literacy coach and math coach are working right now on a plan to work with teachers on how to identify and get the names of students back to them. So, and that the students would reach out to families to participate in the program.
Okay, and then so families will have enough time to plan for this too, right?
Yes,
So,
yes,
okay.
it's a work in progress right now.
All right, and then who will the staff be for, I guess, all the different programs? You have the Falcons, the Journey, because
Yes.
typically those are, just counselors, so I'm just curious what the staff would look like.
Actually, we've posted out to the staff already for teachers that are interested in servicing the program. The Falcons program is staff intensive because we're trying to field a first grade teacher through 5th grade teacher to teach ELA and math. So for 6 weeks. So we're really right now we have a list of teachers who are interested, but probably cannot commit to all 6 weeks. So we're trying to kind of match that all together. If we're not able to use Danvers teachers, we also reached out to higher ed institutions to see if there are some teachers in training that could be part of the program. The curriculum, though, is very supportive for teachers, so it really helps teachers make the decision, and there's some video tutoring that's happening for the students in the ELA program, so we will be training all teachers to use it, but it also has a lot of assistance built into it.
Okay. Okay, great. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff?
This is good. Those were a lot of my questions, too, I think that Alice had. If you don't participate in one of these programs, are there other recommended avenues or options that students would have to pursue additional supplemental education in the summer? I'm thinking maybe high school students. Is there something through one of the community colleges? Maybe we don't support it, but is there something that's going to happen through the state or the local community, or other younger learners, maybe even, I don't know if online, but in person? Are there other options too?
There are other programs out there. They all come at a cost. It's some of the high school kind of summer camp and summer experiences programs, curriculum. So we do make our students aware of those. The content teacher usually has some information around that, and sometimes the guidance counselors. So, but again, that would be at more of a cost program. But we will have, for the high school, with definitely course-specific classes that are there. Traditionally, like all our courses in math and ELA, along with some science courses for students to take part in. We also are working on, again, that tutoring program. We need to make sure first, though, that the Falcons and Journeys programs are up and staffed, and then we're going to be working on the math and ELA tutoring, which we're working towards having that virtual, because that just really is the easiest for families, so like for the hour, the half 30 minutes that the kids would be tutored, or an hour that they'd be tutored, it would, it just makes logistics a lot easier than the drop-off, pickup, and that. So that's where we are, but right now we're finalizing the Falcons and Journeys program this week, and then we'll be moving on to the tutoring program.
Okay. And maybe we'll talk about this when we talk about the strategic plan, but in one of our previous meetings, we talked about some students, some classes, some grades are behind in what they would have typically learned in a typical year. If students are not able to participate in one of these, is the expectation that come the fall, we will have some sort of catch-up provision for those students, or will we be starting at like 70% of where they're expected and change the whole curriculum?
We'll come later in the program. I'm going to be talking about that multi-tier system of support, and you'll see that we're putting a lot of resources into that, and that is to help kids continue on with their grade level curriculum that they're in, and by providing supports in the classroom. So that's our goal.
Perfect. Great. Thank you.
Arthur?
Nothing further.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sort of along the line
Don't
of...
forget Ron. Don't forget Ron.
Oh, I won't. I'm sorry.
I just have a quick question. For the Falcons and Journeys program, do you have to qualify I guess, is it open to any learner, or is it geared towards a specific learner? Because I'm just wondering if, some parents might want more enrichment, like maybe their child is at grade level, but for whatever reason would like, more enrichment for their child, or is it geared toward maybe someone that's maybe struggling?
Yeah, we're still meeting with Danvers Rec. Obviously, the weeks before July 6th and after August 13th will be all 100% just enrichment programming by the Danvers Recreation Department. But we do have structures in it if they do not want to take advantage of the academics. Anyone can, obviously, because it's Danvers Rec, and that's how you register for it, so anyone can sign up for it. But we will ask some families, we'll reach out to them and just say, hey, have you considered, taking part in this? Your child might benefit from having some of the academic enhancements along with the socialization that they'll get through that program.
Okay. That was part of the hope, was to have a larger breadth of students at our reach, so that the kids that do just typically do the Falcons program, we still want them to do the Falcons program.
Yeah. Okay.
And those are kids that will also get those services even if they are at grade level. It's designed for all kids to participate.
All right, thank you.
And Journeys is more geared towards middle school.
Middle school.
Kids. It's only opened to, I think, 6th, right, and up.
Mr. Scarlett? You all set?
Still good.
One question I had, Lisa, has to do with the summer school program. Given the issues with some, that this year particularly are tough, are we changing the criteria for participation in the summer school at all? Is it still based on students who took a course? Like, how are we choosing, or how do we open our summer school program?
I think it would be similar. In the past years, it's really based on the need of the student based on their grades. So looking at it, and again, that is the difference between high school and the other two levels, where at high school it's 4-year transcripts. The program of studies you have to have so many credits each year. So it would be for students that are in need of the credits for the support. We are really trying to balance it with what type of year that we have had. How much do you do during the summertime? How much is for acceleration, and how much is for students with the remediation work in there? But I think it would be flexible with students also in working with their guidance counselor if they see that the need is there for them, if they feel like they needed some extra support in a course.
Okay. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So we will move next to our multi-year planning and revising our Danvers Public Schools strategic plan from 2018 to 2023. So right in the middle is when the pandemic starts for the world and the impact that it has on education. So as we move forward in our multi-year planning, our goal is to support our teachers to do their best professional work and to have all the learning be student-centered and to meet the varying needs of students. So this is really what I spoke about earlier, our high-impact teacher teams, teachers working together. And then what we have continued to take a look at is we will have structures, we can provide curriculum. It's really looking at our belief system. So we will continue to do a great deal of work with all of our educators around our beliefs that all children are capable of learning and thriving in school, that we need to hold students to see, let me go back there. We need to look at what is holding our students back and how we can change it so our students can achieve their definition of success. So speaking earlier about looking at our systems, our structures, all of this through an equity lens as we move forward for all of our students. And we spoke about having high expectations teaching and also our formative assessment for results, and this explains that a little bit more. And then specifically in using the ESSER funding for the coming multiple years in front of us, it's a good for 3 years, is we have 2 themes. That we want to provide our teachers with the professional development for teaching our range of learners, and then we also want to support our teachers with the implementation of those instructional practices of meeting the needs of the learners in their classrooms. So with that overview, I'll ask Keith next to talk about the funding.
So we have 3 slides that walk through the funding that we have over the course of the next 3 years. So this slide provides us with a high-level overview. You'll see that we have a series of grants, 3 of which expire on June 30th of 2021 coming up. Those grants are, essentially spent, minus about $1,200, $1,400 that are left. We then have our ESSER 1, 2, and 3 money, which is what we're going to discuss this evening. You'll see that the first ESSER 1 has an expiration of September 2022. ESSER 2 has expiration of September 2023. And then ESSER 3 in 2024. So as we look to put together our plans, we're looking at putting together a 3-year plan and how, with some of the initiatives that we implement, how do we make them sustainable over that 3-year time period. So this grant, this slide looks at a plan for how we go about spending the money. So our ESSER 1 funds that you saw had about $120,000 left. That money we're going to save for additional PPE, desk chairs, and other supplies that are needed going forward. And then we took our ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 money and combined them into one pot and looked at how do we pay for salaries, PD, and expenses over 3 years with adjustments built in for inflation and salary increases. So our spending will include also benefits. So in the past, all of our grants that we've received have really been more in the entitlement range, or if you remember about 10 years ago, we got SFSF, and that was really to plug holes in anticipated reductions. This set of funding is for spending to help us accelerate learning and to look at things differently. So for this set of funds, we are looking at carrying the benefits costs associated with any hires that we have as part of the grant funding. So that is slightly different than some of our grants in the past, but to help the overall town budget as they look at their different funding mechanisms, and we look as a team, we will carry expenses for that. So you'll see, on average, as we look at some of our younger teachers that we hire and how expenses go, we have a 7.5% inflation built in, and while that's not all inflation, it is taking into account our teacher's contract and how our steps and our COLAs built into that and what the different percentages. So we looked at on average what our employees get or what we see for cost increases. So in year 1, you'll see that we're going to spend approximately $1 million. In year 2, we'll have $1.1 million, and in year 3, we'll spend about $1.2 million to account for the increases that we anticipate over the years, for the total of the $3.3 million that is in the pot of money combined. And then as we look to divide that out into what funding would look like for each level and at the district, we're looking at carrying approximately $81,000 for professional development at the district level. That will help pay for our professional learning community facilitators at all levels, and then other district-wide PD that may come up as we really get and dive into this work at a deep level. We then looked at, for personnel and professional development, approximately $300,000 per level. and then looked at carrying another $50,000 in PPE, supplies, and other expenses that are unanticipated. And then so our total year one spending is approximately $1 million. And then essentially those initiatives that we put into place will be able to carry throughout the life of the grants to make it sustainable for the 3 years.
Thank you, Keith. So next, Mary will bring us through the specifics at the district level and then at each level.
Great. So at the district level, we will be providing teachers with professional development for teaching the range of learners. And we are going to be working with 2 organizations that have supported us over the past years in our district. We have the Teachers College at Columbia for their Reading and Writing Project and RBT, Research for Better Teaching. We use Research for Better Teaching for our induction program. So the first year teachers take a Foundations in Teaching course for year 1, and then they take a class called Studying Skillful Teaching for year 2. But what we've added is a High Expectations teaching course for our professional staff. So teachers that have reached professional status, and they are experienced teachers, but this one really gets at like how to hold high expectations for all learners and how to develop strong relationships with students and have that help them have that growth mindset that they can learn anything if they work hard enough. So that will be one part of it. We'll have a course in this July, and then we're also offering another class in January of 2022. We're also going to be working with the Teachers College. Very key for us this summer is for the elementary level and for the 6 through 8 ELA teachers is the equipping ourselves to teach assessment-based small groups to support all readers. So this is going to be part of our multi-tier system of support, Tier 1 instruction, because we're going to have to do that small group differentiated learning to really get at all the students and where they're at. And they will be helping us. They're a week-long institute to do that. And then as Dr. Dana talked about, the first theme is to give the professional development, and the second theme is to support them in implementing it. So they will be coming to coach our elementary school. Each school will have 5 days of coaching for really implementing those small group practices and really working towards differentiating their instruction during the reading and writing units. And then finally, we applied for and were selected as for an MTSS Academy, and the one we chose to apply for were the Culturally Responsive Practice Leadership Academy. And again, that kind of helps us with the work we started this year, really trying to bring the coherence to our diversity, equity, and inclusion work that we've been doing as faculty and across the district. And we look forward to working with them to really put a strong plan in place and really help inform our next strategic plan that is coming. So then each level is working, has some of the ESSER funds to implement the strong Tier 1 and 2 instruction in our multi-tier system of support. And each school really is working to support those teachers to do it. And many of them, all 3 levels, have selected helping support teachers in the classroom so that they can work through the multi-tier system support to give Tier 1 and Tier 2 instructions. So the elementary level, it's to accelerate reading progress K through 5 through the MTSS, and they are going to hire 2 reading teachers to support Tier 2 and Tier 3. So they'll have that specialized knowledge for students that truly are struggling with reading at their grade level, that they're behind grade level and they need additional specialized support. And what we'll also be providing to the reading teachers, we have right now 6 reading teachers in our district. Adding 2 more will be 8. All of them will get professional development and specific training in research-based multisensory reading programs. So that is their model at the elementary level. At the middle school level, they're really working on a teacher residency program. So it's much like a medical residency where new teachers would come in to our district and kind of work through rounds, working with master teachers and working with working with each of the professional learning communities. We're looking to have 3 of them. 2 of them would be these working either in the STEM field or in the humanities. So if you were in the STEM field, you would work with all the professional learning communities, say 6th grade math and 7th grade science, 8th grade math. You'd have different of the STEM focused groups that you would be working with, so you would get a feel for the different teachers that you're working with, and you'd also be helping to support students in each of their classrooms. So they could be co-teaching classes, they could assist with small group instruction, with some data collection. They could also provide coverage so that teachers could co-teach together if they're working on a lesson that was particularly difficult or that students found challenging, and to help one another through that. And then finally, a third resident that they would get is someone to support the role of a SEL coach. So we would pull one of our teachers out of the classroom and then have them working with a resident around SEL. And they would be able to cover that teacher's classroom so that the SEL coach could be out supporting teachers with social emotional learning, both integrating it into their academic classroom. So, and those 3 mentor teachers would also get a little stipend with their money. And then finally, at the high school level, they're taking a similar kind of approach, but they're calling it instructional assistant program. And what they're hiring are teacher assistants. They would be not quite a teacher aide, it would be more like a technician. So the next level up, these will be people that are probably still pursuing their goals of becoming teachers in school, but they would come and work in our school in the same model as the middle school, a humanities person and someone that works in STEM to come in and work with teachers. And again, there's the list similar to the middle school, that they would support small group instruction and data collection in the classroom. They would also work on tutoring with some students that needed further supports. They would participate in the professional learning communities just as they would at the middle school level. And then they would also hire one of these technicians for the TLC program. That was the Therapeutic Learning Center classroom that we had started in the 1920 school year. And then this year, because of the pandemic and the hybrid model, that was not in place this past school year. So we're reestablishing it, and this technician would be key to that work.
Thank you. So with Keith and Mary's leadership, being able to look at the funding and working with our administrators, and then looking at the actual hiring and the support for our faculty in reaching the goals that we have with our students. So Mr. Crane, we'll open it up to questions and comments again.
Mr. Scaris, you are up.
I think it's Jeff's turn. I mean, if we want to be fair, but that's okay. All right, so, sorry, Jeff.
Carry on.
So Keith, all this ESSER money, it's a lot of stuff you guys just said. So I'm not really sure what you said, so let's try to figure it out. So all of this ESSER money, is it in now? When does the money
Yes,
come
we
in?
could spend the money now if we wished to. We could spend it all right now. We have not applied for the funds because we don't plan on spending the funds until next year.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, do we know we're definitely getting this amount of money?
It's guaranteed.
Okay. And so when you kind of parse it out like you did, so you gave us the year 1 spending, and will year 2 and year 3 basically look the same? So the same amount going to, I mean, the money's pretty much the same from year to year. So is the way it's dispersed going to be pretty much the same from year to year?
With inflation built in, so we kind of backwards designed, or we took our total and then worked backwards to make sure that if we hire staff in the 2021-22 school year, that we'll be able to afford that same staff in the 23-24 school year. So in year 1, we'll spend $1,031,000, and in year 3, we'll spend $1,191,000. So there's a chart at the bottom half of the second funding slide that shows the spending in the 3 fiscal years.
Yeah, I saw that. So what I'm getting at is, obviously, in year 1, you basically said school level supporting teachers class. Most of the money is the $900,000. That's divided $300,000 at each level. So in year 2 and year 3, is that going to be the same? It's going to be basically 900 plus or minus a little bit?
Right, plus or minus to afford the increase.
All right, and so then when you go to, when you go down to like the elementary level, okay, so the $300,000 2 additional teaching positions are part of that. And so what's, just kind of give me a little more detail on so that's what, half of the money, maybe? Half of the 300?
More than that, when you add in the cost of benefits, when
Okay.
you add in the cost of a retirement match.
All right.
On average, each teacher is probably about $100,000 when you add in the
All
implied
right,
costs.
so now what's the other 100 going to be spent on?
The PD for the reading teachers and the professional development for all educators in different reading areas.
All right, and so the idea is that for the 3 years, you'll have the same teachers, hopefully they stay, and we continue to fund them with this amount of money.
Yes.
Okay. So Mary,
Yes?
I really don't, is a teacher resident, is it a real teacher, or is it I'm going to be a teacher, or
Yep, it's
or what are
a
their
new,
qualifications?
new teacher. We're hoping that have teachers like first year out of school coming in to work with us so that they would be interested in getting working in a diverse or in multiple learning environments. So they would get, what's in it for them is that they get to experience lots of different classrooms and see different teachers teaching, and they're there to help support students in each one of those areas. So in the STEM field, they would do the science and math, and then the humanities would be English, language arts, and social studies. And so they will be working at all 3 grade levels as well and getting
So
experiences
it's
there.
the same as a new teacher we would hire, they'd have the same qualifications, we're just kind of going to use them in a little bit of a different way?
Yes.
Okay. And that sounds like that's going to take up most of the 300,000?
Yes,
for the
yes,
teachers.
we're right at the edge there.
Okay, so tell me how the 300,000 is being spent at the high school.
In the same way, they were looking more at a step above a teacher aide kind of position, because you would have to have some knowledge of education, and you're like in training to become a teacher, and you're very interested in becoming a teacher, maybe not quite there yet, so that they were thinking that they would be able to hire students in the same type of model, residency model, as the middle school.
So same type of candidate?
It could be, or it could be someone that maybe not have their teaching certificate yet, or graduated from college, or from the master's program. There's many people that are in a master's program.
We do fellowships this year with Salem State and Endicott College, so students that have completed their bachelor's degree but are working on their master's and they're taking their classes at night, they come and work for us during the day. So they're highly educated, highly qualified, but might not have that teaching license yet, so an in-between step.
All right, and how many are we hiring there?
3. The humanities, STEM, and then someone to help with our TLC program. We need to regenerate that.
And the money outlay would be about the same, so they'd be getting about the same as?
Little less.
I think they were hoping to hire 4, which is why they looked at the alternative methods and thinking of somebody in the sciences and then somebody in math. So with more of those core subject areas, they're able to diversify more by hiring the in-between step versus the fully licensed candidates.
No, that makes sense. Okay. All right, that's good. No, I have a better understanding now. I'm all set for now, Eric.
Thank you. And Robin?
Okay, so I have this might be, okay, so I know that we have a lot of, for professional development for teachers, meeting the needs of all range of learners in the classroom, and I see that there's interventions, tier 1, tier 2, and then, things for remediations. I guess, putting on my educator lens, I'm wondering, are we, to create equitable learning opportunities, are we also going to, as part of the PD, going to be focused on teachers learning strategies for like advanced learners? Just because I know right now in Massachusetts, the Department of Ed, or DUSE, has kind of forgotten about those learners, and I don't want to forget about them, and I don't have an answer of, so my question is, are we really thinking about how we can support all learners? Because I think sometimes when we say differentiation, we focus on maybe like the struggling or proficient learners, and I'm wondering how we can take like all the learners to the next level. So my educator lens.
And that was as we were learning more about the multi-tier system of support, that was one of the things that the consultants that focus with us on, it's all learners. So it
Okay.
is pushing them. So the data that comes out of this FAR cycle, the formative assessment, if kids are already at the benchmark or meeting the standard that we want them at, then what are we doing to push them further? So how do we,
Okay.
and then that's why the small group differentiation is important, because those kids that are ready to go further are working together and working on materials, more challenging material.
Okay, so like if you're in the high school and you're teaching honors or AP, like you will get that support as a teacher
Oh, yeah.
for those classes?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
All set, Robin?
Yeah, sorry.
So that's
Any more
okay.
questions?
Alice, go ahead, please.
I guess I have a couple of questions. Was this all based on feedback from the individual schools with what they would do with the funds?
Yes, so we have had administrative council meetings that have the principals, assistant principals, and our curriculum directors, along with central office administrators working together, and then working with our teacher leaders. So schools went back and spoke with their teacher leaders also to get that feedback.
And it is why we left a significant chunk of money in the professional development line, so that as we continue to roll it out to the greater teacher audience, there's more feedback, that we have more funds left to kind of reallocate and redirect as we fine tune the plan. I would say this is our kind of high level but detailed view at the same time, as we've been moving quickly through the process since we've learned about the funds.
Okay, great. Regarding the elementary level, how will the teaching positions be allocated? Is it based on need at the different school? Will you be looking at like Title I?
Yes.
How will that be determined?
Yes, we have, we collect lots of reading data, so it will be based on needs at the schools right now. And that's how, right now we have 6 reading teachers across 5 schools, and the 6th, teacher is allocated out to the schools that are in need, the greater need.
And then with Title I, there's also talk of that funding increasing under the Biden
Okay,
administration.
I was going to ask about that too.
And if it does, we think this plan is scalable to further support that reading support, which I think ideally they would have said they wanted to add more, so that every
Yes.
school definitely has
Right.
2 full-time dedicated reading teachers, but if the Title I funding does increase, we'd have that opportunity.
And then, as you were kind of explaining the different programs, I wrote on my notes, temporary versus permanent. It feels very temporary to me, a lot of these positions. Is it temporary? What's going to happen after the 3 years is up?
That was kind of the guys that we went to the administrative team with, was we need to build this, that if it disappears in 3 years, that we can live without it, or we can scale back the other direction. And then we would see as, that time develops, but there is a good chance that, $1 million is a significant funding that will end, and we'll need to eliminate some of
Okay,
these
so that's
positions
why
over
this
time.
hasn't been allocated to positions that will remain after the 3 years, correct?
Yeah, we are hopeful, though, that, through like retirements that happen over the years, that the newer teachers that come in, that we're able to hire them and keep them in Danvers as that time goes on.
Okay. And then how will these programs be measured? Like, how will you and the schools, understand the success? And will you be able to then make updates to these models?
So it's going to be around the formative assessments that we are taking, so that definitely at the secondary level, that is a stronger guide, so that would help us, day-to-day, week-to-week kind of assessment of it. And then also at the elementary level, the reading and math data that we collect, we'll see improvements in more students moving up levels in their reading, and then doing better and more students meeting benchmarks in the mathematics program.
Okay. And then I'm surprised that there's nothing in here for special education specifically. I don't know if that was discussed, but could you just address it, I guess, for the parents watching?
Right, and I think what we're trying to do is that, again, special education students will also be serviced inside the classroom, just with that multi-tier system of support, so that will be there. And then also trying to catch kids before they are, that they don't have to get on that IEP, because we've given the interventions that they need prior to that. So.
Okay, great, thank you, that's all I have.
Jeff?
Sure. And I think a couple of people have touched on this. This is essentially the wish list that we had, that we always say every year, if we had an extra $1 million or $2 million, roughly, what would we do with it? And so it is a good opportunity to see that. Now, the bad side of it is I'm sure a lot of this has happened because of, obviously, COVID, right? The reason that this is temporary is because we probably are behind a little bit on reading, which is just absolutely the most important, particularly at the elementary level. So, you know, if we view these recommendations as mitigation and improvement for the impact that COVID has on it, you know, I think it will be okay. I was thinking along the lines of Alice too, though, which was, this is 2 years, and then what happens in year 3, right? You're going to get 2 years of great support, of great additional reading, which, by the way, we've been asking for years, right? Particularly in the elementary schools. And it's tight, right? Even physical space was tight, which I know we're gonna have more space in Smith, which is great. But, you know, it's great we're gonna get this. And I am really curious to see what the results will be in terms of improving. So if the FAR cycle can show us that, that would be excellent. But it would be nice to have a way, if we can see some really good results from these, to somehow keep these positions or in some form or fashion. But on a couple of the specific ones, high school tutoring after school, so I'm assuming that's paid after school tutoring, which is different than I guess we could normally get from students from honor societies and things like that. Is that correct?
It would be an additional support with staff, right? So we do have National Honor Society, where students are supporting each other with tutoring, but this would be an additional bit with the staff members through this funding. That would be part of their position.
Okay, so this would be good for students in particular whose families can't afford private tutors, to say, okay, we are going to provide this now, which is something that, you know, typically more affluent families would have access to, so other students would get. Okay, that's good. And then I guess the only other question was, we talked about additional staff to allow for interventions to occur while whole class instruction continues. Can you provide some examples of that at the high school level?
Yes, you know, Robin had asked about, you know, what about like acceleration learning? So what happens is if the teacher feels like the majority of the class is still, you know, needs some work on a concept, but there's a group of kids that are kind of already mastered that content, then that would be something that happens. The same thing is if they are working on a concept where kids are not quite there's a group of kids not quite getting it, so then that person would pull the small group, kind of pull them aside and really catch them up with a more intensive tutoring, meeting their exact needs, versus sitting in the whole classroom and like just getting the general lecture from the teacher, so, or the, you know, whatever work they were doing. So that would be definitely some way that person could pull and help that along.
Wouldn't those people, though, need to have some specialized skills? Like, if that's a physics class, you're not going to have physics and then world history and then math and then chemistry. Like, you can't have that many specialists, can you? Or are they focused on some other more universal aspects of learning that they would be able to help with?
At the high school level, and Keith you know, reiterated that actually we're hiring in each of the fields, so math, science, social studies, and ELA. So and that's why they're not getting the newer teachers. They're getting like students that are still in school, like a teacher fellow, that is still working towards their degree in education.
So they will have the specific discipline to help?
Yeah.
Great, okay. Those are my questions, thanks.
Thanks, Jeff. I share the concern that Alice and others have raised about the temporary nature of it. And maybe that's something as we go forward, as we measure the success of the program, we end up looking at our own budget where we can. I would think that as we go forward, the success of the program is going to depend greatly on how well the staff at the various schools use the support. You know, it's very easy to look at an extra hands as just a pair of extra hands, but there should be sort of a clear model and a clear expectation as to what the extra hands are going to do that really is supportive of the students directly. And finally, I think, especially at the high school level, for example, is the taking someone still in school, still learning, still getting the teaching degree and using them in the therapeutic learning center the best model, or do you take someone more experienced, allow them to spend some time in the therapeutic learning center where you've got some challenged students, and use that other person to help in the classroom during a certain period? I'm just spitballing, basically. But I think those are some of the considerations you have to make going forward, being flexible with the model.
Yes, and depending on the staffing and who's able to be
Yes.
hired, and then we look at the faculty members that we do have now and putting people in the right places. Thank you.
Yep. And I would think hiring the right people is going to be as key for this as it will be for any other teaching position that would come open, and should be viewed that way, I would think.
Yes. And we do realize we did put a lot in this part of the presentation. We wanted to be able to present this here as the overview today so we can get the postings out next week to start the hiring, and then be able to talk about it again in June and give you more feedback.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question about the hiring process?
Sure.
Are you expanding the places where you're looking to pull some of that talent?
Yes, so we have our school spring. We did sign up for another site, Handshake, and then also working through a diversity collaboration for the state of Massachusetts also. Great. Thank you.
Just so it's clearer, because I think Jeff at one point mentioned 2 years, it's 3 years. It's 3 years of $1 million, okay? And so while I get the thought process of the temporary nature, I mean, I'm not really worried about that, and that's the point, because somebody's giving us $1 million a year for 3 years. So
sure.
I'm happy to take it, and let's see what we can do with it.
No complaints, no complaints.
Thank you.
Anyone else before we move on? No, I guess we're good.
Thank you. So we have guests from our high school. So next I'd like to ask Mr. Alex Grover and students from our high school that he has brought with him that have been part of an advisory committee. As we were educating during the pandemic, you're going to hear some really exciting work that has been happening in planning at the high school.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to introduce my guests first. We have Anne Lauren Joko, class of 2022, Natalie Onofre, class of 2022, and Isha Patel, class of 2024. For those of you who I haven't met, my name's Alex Grover. I am the choral director at the high school. Very grateful, privileged to be in front of you today presenting this work. Special thanks to Lisa, Keith, and Mary for allowing for this opportunity, and we're excited to have this audience of the school committee for this work, because it should hopefully fuel a lot of the work that you've already heard tonight moving forward. So we'll get started, but before we do that, I just wanted to give you a little bit of context for how we got to what you see here. So a few years ago, Mary put together a team of people that went and did some rigorous professional development as part of the Essex County Learning Community, and there was 3 topical teams with that work: social emotional learning, cultural and diversity topical team, and MTSS, which you've obviously heard a lot about already. I was a part of the social emotional learning topical team, and so I've done a lot with others across the districts over the past few years, including a new SEL steering committee that Mary's put together, as well as an adult SEL group. So that's the first piece of context. I'm sort of calling this like a confluence of impetuses to get to this work. The second thing is we have learning during a pandemic. And while we would never wish to have something like this happen to us, and there's a lot of tragedy that's come out of it, there truly is an opportunity here to hopefully come out on the other end with some change that would before maybe be disruptive and sort of maybe not welcomed as much, but coming out on the other end of this, it could be sort of a time that we could take advantage of in order to, get some stuff through to improve our teaching and learning in our schools. And then on a personal note, I've used the year of the learning during the pandemic to enroll in a teacher leadership program at Brandeis University. which has led me to being able to facilitate adaptive challenges within schools. And that's sort of a segue into the main thing that I want to tell you tonight, again, that isn't up here yet, but this work isn't me or these 3 students. It's the work of a lot of stakeholders throughout the district and the school. We had a team of 24 students and teachers that were in a study group. We also had a team of scheduling consultants. We had a 4-person committee that was the advisory committee for the last 10 years that worked on a lot of the planning for this. And I worked closely with Mary and a few other teachers that got us to this point. So it's truly a team effort that got us to here. And this is just a snapshot tonight. There's a 15-page document that's the recommendation of the study group that I believe is linked in your presentation at some point, that if you'd like to read about the finer details, you can do that at a later time. But I'll get started here. So before this, advisory was a special homeroom that met once a month for 37 minutes. And sort of from the onset, it was a bit of a reaction to a NEASC recommendation that we needed to have this program. And so it never really lived up to what it was meant to do, which was an opportunity to create better relationships with students and teachers. So with this opportunity, we wanted to look at advisory in its current state pre-COVID. We did a survey of faculty, and we researched case studies and looked at other schools' programs to help inform our work. So the pillars of the recommendation are a program rebrand, big picture goals, configuration, how we put these special homerooms together and how we assign teachers together and teachers to the students, an increased frequency, which you see the schedule graphic there, which I'll explain a little bit later, and then improved content. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the rebrand first, and then I'll hand it over to the students here. So we're going to have a new name to our advisory program, and it's going to be called Community Meeting. We're going to infuse a lot of student leadership into this new program, and community meeting sessions are going to be supported by student facilitators who are enrolled in a year-long course called Leadership, Community, and Culture, and we're going to call these students community leaders. And then we have personnel support for this as we're creating a new position of community meeting director, and that director is going to work with administration, teachers of the new course, the teachers themselves of the community meetings, and the student community leaders to support the operations and the curriculum of the new program. And that director is also going to chair a 4-person co-curricular committee that will look at the curriculum as it goes and be able to infuse, current events and what the community needs in order to be relevant and rigorous for students. So next I'm going to head into section 2 up there, which is the goals, but I'm going to turn it over to Anne, Lauren, and Natalie, who can sort of convey some of the work of our study group.
So just a brief overview of how we came up with these goals. So for these goals, we were randomly split into groups with students and teachers alike and brainstormed what we wanted our future advisory to look like. And so we meticulously worked on coming up with these goals across several meetings before we came together and sifted through the ideas we had come up with before coming up with a sort of more broad and generalized overall goals for the community meeting.
One of our bigger goals was to build meaningful relationships between students and other students, students and staff with other staff. And by doing this, we will serve as a support network to broaden student connections within the wider DHS community. Within community meetings, students will feel safe to engage in meaningful conversations, communicate and listen effectively, and look to peers and teachers as mentors.
And so our second goal is student leadership development. So community meeting will foster student leadership through courageous communication, listening, empathy, respect, responsibility, initiative, and teamwork. Social emotional learning will be an important part of developing these specific skills to help students recognize and feel confident in their leadership potential. So through community meeting, we want to allow a lot more students to have the chance to become leaders in their own way or leadership style. So many more students will have the opportunity to lead in their classrooms before going out in the community and leading in a more widespread manner.
Another goal of ours is to create an inclusive, accepting, and understanding school community. Now, this is an area of improvement in our school, and through community meeting, we will try to create a safe environment where students and staff feel as if they belong and can communicate openly and honestly in order to educate each other on building an anti-racist and anti-discriminatory community as we raise awareness and reduce stigma.
And our final goal is citizenship, so students will gain awareness of the diversity in the community and skills to become active citizens. Community meeting will provide students with more specific opportunities to become an involved, positive member of the community. So with community meeting, we can prep students for the real world by showing them the importance of community service.
I'm going to hand it over to Isha now to talk about our configuration pillar of the recommendation, meaning how we group students, how we pair teachers together for co-advisors, and so on. So take it over.
The students in community meeting will be grouped by grade level and interest. We're going to have a survey. The students will take a survey through Google Form. The survey is going to ask them what their interests, hobbies, and favorite activities are, and include a personality quiz. We will be using the True Colors personality quiz to balance out students with different personalities together. We will also try to keep students with similar interests together. For the teachers, we're also going to have a Google Form. In it, teachers will have the chance to ask us to tell us who they prefer to work with. The survey results will be analyzed by administration and the community meeting director to group students. These groupings will last 4 years. 4-year groupings will help students feel more comfortable and
We've actually started in on that one already. We've surveyed some of the teachers about how we're going to pair them together, and we have some really interesting responses so far. So we're looking forward to getting into some of the implementation steps. So now I'll get into the schedule before I go into the aligning with the district strategic plan. As you can see there, we have this block in the middle of the day, and what's happening in order to create opportunity for what we've talked about tonight is we're going down to 3 lunches. The high school has 4 lunches now, and we're going to repurpose the 25 minutes that we're gaining by going down to 3 lunches to include what we're calling this community block. And so each day, different days of the cycle, the different grade levels will have community meetings. So once a cycle, they'll engage in what we've talked about tonight, and with co-advisors and a community leader, a student facilitating sessions that are looking to the goals that Ann, Lauren, and Natalie described. So that means there's other time in the schedule during this 25 minutes. So the scheduling consultant team that we had came up with this model where when they're not in community meeting, they're either in an assembly or in a focus block. And an assembly, they'll have one assembly cycle that can be a place for announcements or maybe arts performances or a special club presentation or even promotional club presentations. Some of the guidance work can be done for senior scholarships or for course selection. Sort of the sky's the limit for what can happen during the assembly in terms of using that time more effectively as opposed to pulling kids out of class, which is normally done for assemblies like those. And then the focus block, which has already been referenced in tonight's presentation, is actually an acronym that's going to be posted in classes that can help teachers get students on track during that time, that 25 minutes where they go to their community meeting room but aren't necessarily in community meeting. And that's going to stand for focus, finish work, O, organize, C, communicate, catch up on your emails, you utilize the time to make sure you're doing one of these things on this acronym. And then S is self-care. And so students can engage in SEL, independent SEL activities, depending on the kind of day that they're having. And we will instruct teachers on how to refocus students who are engaging in self-care activities. And then the green one you see, we're going to pilot a program called Passion Projects. And then that's a focus block, but 5 to 10 teachers next year are going to do things like maybe yoga or knitting or board games, like that's something that is a fun thing that students might be interested in that can create another connection with a teacher and another relationship. So that also falls under the social emotional learning umbrella that we've been working towards for a long time under the strategic plan as well. So that's sort of the scheduling piece. And then as for aligning with the district strategic plan, I won't necessarily read all of this, but we're essentially hitting 5 key points of our strategic plan, which is the SEL competencies across the district in a coherent manner. We've done that just by this study group alone, looking at this and making it more frequent. You know, we're refining existing curricula to create student agency and voice. We literally have student voice here tonight, and we will with them taking the course and being facilitators of these community meetings. There's going to be a lot of professional learning that needs to take place for teachers in order to implement this effectively. PBL is definitely going to come out of community meeting itself, and within the new course, they're going to do projects in order to create sessions for these community meetings. And then teaching all students to be independent learners, we have that focus time that I just described, so it can be a real opportunity to engage students in executive functioning, which has already been referenced tonight, and I think is definitely an important thing for students. So that's pretty much everything from us.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Mr. Grover, to our students and Mr.
Questions
Green.
from the school committee?
Yes.
All righty. Whoops, Robin, I think it's your turn to go first.
Okay, well, thank you all, first of all, for all the hard work you've done on this. This is not specifically to Mr. Grover or the students, but I guess one question I do have, well, two. So I know it was mentioned about getting all voices involved, and I really would like to stress, because I think sometimes, you put it out there that, a student can participate and be part of it, but sometimes you get kind of like the same students over and over again. So to really I really want to emphasize that, you try to pull a kid that you might not think maybe would participate, but that would be great so that we could get all voices. And then just the other question, and this might probably more to administration, is, how do we make sure, how are we measuring that we are implementing it with fidelity so that it is effective and that, we are achieving what we want? Because I think this is all great. I just want to, make sure that we do implement it with fidelity. But that's not on you, Mr. Grover.
Do you mind if I answer that?
Okay. I didn't want you to think I was putting it on you.
No, absolutely. The administrative team has been unbelievably supportive of this effort, and I think it's rooted in what I referenced at the beginning, which is this isn't coming out of nowhere. Right. It's the product of a lot of work that's been going on over the past 3 or 4 years. So I know that we'll be able to work together fluidly to commit certain resources to this. We already have in the short term in creating a new position, the community meeting director, that's going to have direct contact with administration at the central level and also at the school level to make sure these sort of benchmarks that we've made for ourselves are being met as we go. And just sort of to let you into my personal mindset about this, I'm really excited about 21, 22, and I think we have a team in place to be able to do this. Where I'm at is 22, 23, and 23, 24 in terms of what this can be. You see all those blue with that focus block there. It's possible that those could turn into more passion project blocks, or they could turn into formal MTSS interventions where we're actually you know, keeping record of students that are pulled during that time, and we'll have hopefully a lot of data in the next couple of years that we can look to in order to inform the work moving forward.
Well, please let us know how we can help in any way with that, so.
Yeah.
Because that's such an important piece.
Yes, and absolutely we will. You know, I remember Jeff saying to me last time when I presented on SEL that I said, you know, part of the thing that we learned in our professional development is it goes right to the top where we should have school committee members involved in some of this work. I'm not joking when I say this. You know, we're having co-advisors for community meetings. You know, you're not going to be able to come there every day, but I'm even thinking along the lines, maybe some of the community meetings will have 3 adults in the room, and once a week, certain administrators can come in, and once a month, maybe school committee members can come in. So we would welcome the help and visibility so that to answer your question in another way, so that we know this work has support.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thanks. Alice?
Congratulations. I mean, I think a lot of work went into what you guys presented to us, so thank you. Will this be mandatory for incoming students?
It's being implemented at all grade levels. So a lot of the work is going to be done in the next 2 months in terms of the rollout to students. One of our next steps, I think, is going to be creating a video sort of and something that can be visual for students to get on board with this. That has not started at all, but it's in our minds to be able to promote it to students. And, you know, Adam Federico has been unbelievably supportive and involved with this process, and he says, you know, this is the thing that we're doing next year, and so all students will be involved in it.
Okay.
And hopefully we can reach as many of them as possible with the different aspects of it.
And I do hope you'll report back to us as well, some of the key themes and what you're hearing.
Absolutely. Mary already said that to me today. She's like, you'll probably be back in the fall.
Perfect. Because I think it's important for us on the school committee to hear student voices as well. So I would be very interested to hear what is being discussed and what is being shared and what the key takeaways are of those discussions as well. I'm more than happy to come in. I teach CEOs how to listen, and I teach them about empathy, so I'm more than happy. I'll already raise my hand in terms of contributing to, you know, you mentioned listening earlier, so I'm more than happy to talk to a group of students about that as well.
Maybe a guest speaker at an assembly.
Absolutely. Absolutely, sign me up. But I do commend you guys. I think there is a need that we've all been hearing in our community for something like this. So I commend you guys for proactively taking this step that's needed to start making that bridge between students and teachers, and even students and teachers to teachers. So I commend you guys for that. Thank you.
Jeff?
This page in particular is extremely well written. I mean, I've read a lot of materials over my time, but this is the first paragraph I remember reading that really it has a lot of passion behind it. And I don't know how it was put together or who did it, but it is extraordinary in what it is trying to do. And it is really a transformative effort, and that is exactly what we need in a lot of these. And I'm glad we're able to do it in this particular moment, because it is not for the short term, it is for the long term, and it is something that we are combining a lot of what we are trying to do. And I would be willing to bet there are other aspects of our strategic plan that this is going to influence as well. You probably picked the top 5 or so here, but you know, I can already see a few. So, you know, certainly thank you for picking that out. One quick question on the advisory piece on I guess slide 20. It says the students will be grouped by grade level and interest. Are the interests aligned to the goals? So do students maybe one year choose citizenship and another student leadership, or are there other interests that they would be grouped by?
They're not aligned to the goals. The goals are sort of the overarching concepts that are going to be discussed and facilitated during the community meeting sessions. In terms of how they're going to be grouped, the survey takes a look at what affinities they're involved with, maybe what their hobbies are going to be, so that the pairings and the groupings of students can be a little less random than they would be normally. Our advisory program before, they were just grouped alphabetically. And so we wanted to be a little bit more thoughtful. And so it's like a little bit arbitrary, like the things that we picked to put on the survey in terms of interest, but we did put a personality test on there. So we're hopefully going to put a formula together as well to, make sure that we do it equitably and intentionally, and it's not just random as it was.
Give a Myers-Briggs test or something.
Something
That'd
like
be
that.
really interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
ENTJ, that's good. And then the last question I had was, there was a talk about a lot of the teachers, I guess, having professional learning for a lot of the educators. This is sort of the second or third time we've heard that today. Do our teachers have enough time for all of this? I feel like they're getting a lot of supplemental extra training. Is it just that they're getting a couple of these and not everything, or are all teachers getting all of this additional training we've talked about tonight, not just for advisory?
Can I go first and then
Yeah,
kick
you
it
go
to you?
ahead.
So a lot of the professional learning that's going to go on in the early stages of this is probably support for the operational questions that they'll have, and being able to market this and facilitate it in a way that's going to be effective and sort of a win in the first year. And obviously, we're going to always be trying to infuse those goals into everything that we do, even if it's just logistical. But there are going to be some opportunities, and this is where I'll have Mary jump in, that either some of the optional or required professional development will be specific to some of those goals up there that will hopefully make its way into the classroom, into teachers' classrooms and into their community meeting classrooms. Did you want to say more on that, Mary?
Right, no, we're just really going to work, and starting in June, the optional professional development is going to be around book studies, but it's all around relationship building and creating that mindset of, all students can succeed and learn, and given the right environments. And so much of that work is, in June, we'll be building that base, that foundation that they need, so that when we go to do the required professional development in August, that base is there. We've got the mindsets and people ready to do this work. And then, so as Alex said, in August, a lot of Danvers High will be like, a little bit of logistics, but then also more of that relationship building focus for their professional development, as well as a little bit on the multi-tier system of support.
Terrific, perfect, excellent, great job, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Arthur?
First of all, to the three students, great job. And we have a freshman in the group too, which is even more impressive. But I would also say, Alex, you seem a little bit passionate about this. And I generally, Eric and I have talked about this before, when historically, when I see this passion, it usually bodes well for what's going to come in the future. And so obviously, I thought that I had seen the extent of your passion when you took a Moorbound chorus program and turned it into an a cappella juggernaut here at the school. But this is even greater. You're unbelievably into this, and that's great. And it's hard to comment specifically because it's just something that you've worked on to create, and we haven't seen it implemented yet. But it seems like it's going to do great things, and I'm really looking forward to see what happens with it. Let me just add, of course, I always end up with logistical questions. So the community meeting, where will that be? Where will that be held?
In terms of venues in the
exactly.
school? So they're going to be community meeting partners, so 2 teachers, and we're also looking to involve staff members in that too. So a teacher's partner could end up being some staff member. We haven't necessarily figured out who we're going to be able to tap for that, but it will likely just be in one of the teachers' classrooms or one of the spaces where that teacher normally is, and that'll sort of be like their home base, if you will, for this block to do any of those other things, unless they're going somewhere else for something specific.
And then the assembly would be the whole class getting together? Is that what that would be?
Yes. pending COVID restrictions, I guess. We are looking at possibly sort of keeping the Zoom method where like the teacher would project it on the smart board to save a little bit of time depending on what the content of the assembly is. So if the administrator is running the assembly, they could do it from their office, and then the class that had the assembly, the teacher could just put it on the board, depending on what it was. But if it maybe were for an arts performance or something of a little bit more significance, we'd put them all in the auditorium, and it'd be a time to get together.
You know, we can now sing inside.
We can as of March, but you could kind of see what I was doing when we couldn't sing inside.
And I, you know, listen, who knows? But the way I'm looking at this is like we're having regular school in September. So I mean, I would anticipate that that's what's going to be happening when we get to September. It all sounds great. I mean, this just sounds really. I mean, the most important thing is that everybody is. You don't learn unless you're very comfortable and secure, and you feel great about where you are. And so if this leads to that, then this is a great thing. And I know that you guys are all three of you and all the other students and Alex and the other teachers, it sounds like something you're really going to work hard on. So I'm looking forward to see it all, how it all pans out. And I'll come to watch Alice and Robin when they talk to the groups.
Yeah, they can put me on Zoom. I'll be in my own classroom.
That's right. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you, Arthur. Everyone has asked any questions I could have come up with. I have a couple of comments, which is, it seems to me this is really innovative, which we love to see. Has a chance to be transformative for students, for the school, for the program, for the culture of the school, which is one of the things we've been talking about all year and how important it is. And this will sound odd, but in many ways the most optimistic thing that struck me was when you said that talking about the old advising program, it never lived up to what it was supposed to be or what it was supposed to do. And the fact that you were willing to recognize that maybe in response to the, NEASC, we sort of checked a box and created this program, but we didn't give it the life it deserves. And we could have sat there and left it alone. But the fact that there's a recognition that, this isn't what it's supposed to be and we're going to do something better speaks really, really well to what we're trying to accomplish. So kudos to you and everybody who has supported you along the way, to the students who are working with you. Thank you, because this has a chance to be something really great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Grover, and to our students, thank you so much for being with us and sharing. This really is a wonderful example of the collaboration, the work together, teacher leadership, and it has all come together. Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you very much for coming so late. So we'd like to just take a moment to pull it all together. Oh,
I just want to get off. I don't know if that was allowed.
Thank you. I had to stop. Wonderful. So I'm always honored as superintendent to be able to present our team and to have the voices. Thank you, Alex. Have the voices of our community to be able to really share what they're doing in the classroom. So being able to now take this and sum this up and give you a highlight of what we want to do over the next 2 years also, and really the part of next school year. A portrait of a graduate is part of our work in our current strategic plan. Pandemic put that work on hold. This statement comes from our vision. So really we need to continue our work of connecting our vision, mission, and our core values. Again, what Mr. Grover was just able to present really pulls that all together as an amazing example. We want to be able to take a look at what are those 21st century learning skills that all through preschool through 12th grade as we prepare our students to be Danvers High graduates. And to do this, one of our ways is to have a district council. So to be able to have the community come together, have members of our school committee and teachers in our schools and students, that student voice. So we would have done this similar if we think about strategic planning or visioning, but that usually is for 1 or 2 meetings. We'd like to see this continue over the course of the school year and hope to continue it for years to come also. So this would be starting next year with that district council, and at our June meeting, we look forward to presenting more information to you. And Mary, the last slide, a couple statements of pulling this all together, that the foundation of our Danvers Public Schools that we believe all students are valued for their unique strengths, talents, and challenges, that adults have high expectations for our students, that's based on believing in each student's ability to succeed, and again, that we do this through collective efficacy, all of our adults working together to support our students. And with that, for having engaged students, we need to align our actions to our words for our 3 priorities, that all students are valued, student safety is a priority, and that students have voice and choice in their learning. So we thank you this evening for listening. We do not usually have a presentation that would take over an hour, but we really felt as having 2 new school committee members join us, and at this time of also the coinciding with moving out of the hybrid model and having full in-person learning, that was a really good opportunity to do that overview as we move forward together as a community.
Well, I do think it was worth it. The time was well spent and makes you feel optimistic about where we're going.
Thank you. Thank you.
So next on information from the superintendent, facilities update.
Yes, some of the technical, but they also lead us to adaptive learning work.
So Mary will pull up a video. We're very excited about the Smith School. The video goes, the first part will show you a time lapse from the time we broke ground, and then the second part is, again, all of our connections. Proud of one of our students, Ferris, at Danvers High School, who was able to tape a tour that we did for faculty and staff. So we'll take you inside the new building. So we'll go from the outside and then into the in. And this project will be substantially complete on June 1st, so we're really getting close to moving it in the fall. lower grades, so K to 2. This is an extended learning zone in the hallway that I'll have room for all kids in the class to sit. That's kind of about looking where the new playground will be, the new cafeteria, serving area. And this is the main quarter outside of the art and music rooms, looking back towards, this is the new stage, which is between the gym and the caf. So we're very excited. The teachers are busy working, starting to pack up all of their things. Furniture will be delivered starting this month and will be ready to go come the fall. So as we did with our past school committee, we'd like to invite everybody over if we want to arrange for a time for a tour. Maybe Mr. Skarmis would make it this time, despite
I'll be
last
there.
time.
Next one.
We're also going to find a time for Finance Committee and the Select Board to go through during the month of May. So that way everybody can see the project.
Questions for Keith? Alice, you're up.
No, my kids go to this Smith School, and I know the faculty got a tour, and they shared everything with the students, so the students are very excited about the new building, so they're anticipating the opening of it.
Excellent. Jeff?
Is there a day, is the first day of school going to be like a ribbon cutting or something, how that works, or?
We will have some celebrations for the students, and then we are working on arranging for tours of the old Smith School before it comes down during the month of June.
God.
Yeah.
And then we'll also be inviting the community, and sometime in the fall, we're just continuing to monitor COVID and gathering and how we go about that for a formal ribbon cutting.
Gotcha, perfect, thank you.
Mr. Scott?
So is the building coming down, when's the current building coming down?
July 1st,
So
let's say, like, we're gonna move out on the 23rd of June, the movers are lined up, and then they will start that following week with abatement and demolition and all of the site work. So it's quick.
Okay, that's it, thanks.
And Robin?
Just as a comment, as a former Bulldog, I have to be able to go on one last time. Yes. So I need to make that happen, Keith.
Mr. Thompson asked if there was portions that we could like sell as a fundraiser of the old school, and I said, there's not even like one brick wall anywhere to be found that we could actually. It's all rotting metal with holes in it. I'm not sure what we could sell.
Someone may want that, who knows?
Well, I heard the music room flooded last week, so.
That is a consistent challenge.
And my response to my daughter was, you're having a new school soon, so they're prioritizing the fixes.
I would just say one of the things that I know as the construction now is coming to a conclusion, there were a lot of community concerns at the time about what the impact of the construction would be, the safety of the students who were at Smith School, and I just have to comment that I haven't heard a lot of negative feedback from the neighbors or from, parents at the school. It sounds like logistically, Arthur's favorite area, that things were run really efficiently, really well, really safely. And so kudos to everybody who worked on that, including you, Keith.
Thank you.
All right, we stay with Keith for a COVID-19 statistics update.
I'm not sure why, Mary, if we go up a slide, no matter what I do to this presentation, it always opens to the old chart. But as we like to start each month talking about our health and safety measures and reminding everyone, please make sure you're washing your hands, that we're wearing our mask and face coverings, that we're physical distancing and staying home when sick. Those are the keys in this ongoing fight against the pandemic. As of May 3rd, we do have a revised definition of a close contact in the school setting. So working with the Mass Department of Public Health, DESE came up with a new definition, which we proceeded to run through our local Department of Public Health and our school nurses. But a new definition of a close contact is somebody being within 3 feet of a positive COVID individual for 15 cumulative minutes, while in the classroom or on the bus. While they're at any other aspect of the school day, it remains to be 6 feet. One important part to highlight here is if you're within 3 feet, you are still actually a close contact by definition. You're just not being asked to quarantine. But you are to self-monitor for symptoms per the regular protocols. So we still are identifying those people that are less than 6, but more than 3, so the families can monitor those symptoms. So then as we do each month, we'll dive into our week-by-week statistics. I will say that we had no, again this month, no cases from school transmission within the school setting. And then starting this week, you'll see kind of a tweak to our infographic that's going to include the number of close contacts from the school setting. So we've been, that's based on feedback from the community and that question being asked, and we've been tracking that data for a few weeks in our office that we can get a handle on consistency or not, but that will become part of our public infographic moving forward. So for the week of April 16th, there was 41 cases townwide. We had 4 cases in the school setting. 32% of the cases were under the age of 18, with a positivity rate of 3.7%, and 55% of Danvers was at some state of vaccination. We go to the week of April 23rd, we have 49 cases across the town, 2 in the school setting. 16% of the cases are under the age of 18, a 3.1% positivity rate, and 58% vaccinated. The week of April 30th, this is where we start to see our decline as we've seen statewide. So there's 37 cases in Danvers, 2 cases in the schools. 35% of those cases come under the age of 18, a 2.92% positivity rate, and 61% vaccinated. And then for the week of May 7th, there's 29 cases townwide, again 2 in the schools. 31% of the cases are under the age of 18, a 2.74% positivity, and 64% vaccinated. So we like to see the positivity rate has gone from 3.7 to 2.74. Vaccination rates has gone from 55% to 64%. So the public health trends are moving in the right direction, and we're seeing a similar trend that we see statewide where more of the cases are going to the younger populations as they've yet to been vaccinated. I did see this afternoon that Pfizer has now been granted emergency approval for ages 12 to 15. So that's another step, and the latest that I've personally heard is that kids 2 to 12 are most likely looking at sometime in September. So continuing as more people get vaccinated, these numbers should continue to trend in the right direction. We have seen, I'll say for this upcoming week, we do have 4 cases this week, so we anticipate that we'll see somewhere between 2 and 4 cases in the school setting as we go forward. As we have more students back, there was some time in the fall and before our high school, middle school students returned that sometimes those kids weren't in the school setting, so sometimes those numbers seemed lower, even though the total cases with kids might have been slightly higher.
Questions for Keith on this? Anybody? No? All right, I do have one, which is, how are we calculating, positive COVID-19 student and staff cases in schools reported in the past week. So it looks up there and you see week of May 7th, 1 elementary, 1 secondary. But it feels like the number of emails that we have received from the school just in the last week is more than that, more than just 2 cases. So how is that number arrived at actually on a weekly basis?
So every one of the cases that you see on here actually is an email that you get. I think that since last Wednesday, there have been 4 cases versus 2 cases the week before, and they came in a kind of a more clustered format. So we had 2 on Friday and 2 on today that we communicated. So I think it's partially just the way that our brain processes. It seems like a lot more than it really is, but it's been 4. So for every case that appears on one of these slides, an email goes out to that individual school community, which we then obviously forward them to you. To be able to see as a school committee member.
All right. So if I go back and look, I'm going to see that for the week of May 7th, I should have got 1 email about an elementary student or staff, whatever it would be, and 1 about secondary.
So typically it goes through the school contact central office. We then add it to an internal spreadsheet that we have. It then goes on the slide based on the information on that spreadsheet. It also gets reported to the Department of Ed, so these numbers will match through DESE, the number of cases, and then the principal communicates out to the school community, which sometimes goes in 2 formats. One message goes out to faculty, letting them know, showing them the communication that will go out to families, and then the communication goes directly to families later on in the day.
And it's basically Wednesday to Wednesday. So although you say it's updated on the Friday, you're looking at Wednesday to Wednesday, then DESE will confirm the numbers with us because it's on Thursday evening that it's reported to the public, and then we then take Friday. So it's almost like a 2-day process. You take a week Wednesday to Wednesday, DESE releases the information on Thursday, and then we put this chart together on Friday.
Okay.
It's a combination of a few different major data sources, so they don't align perfectly in the day of the week.
Eric, I actually do have a question.
Oh, sure.
Sorry.
Please.
Could you tell us how many students had to get quarantined because they were considered a close contact?
So we're going to start reporting that out as of this Friday for the week. So I'll tell you, out of the 4 cases we've had this week, we've had 4 close contacts that have needed to quarantine. So there was 3 with 1 case, 0 with another, 1 with 1 case, and 0 with the other. If we go back to the week before, that's when the definition changed. So that's why we're not going to release that information as part of the infographics, to keep it kind of clean moving out of that new definition, so that we have the continuity of the data going forward.
I think families are still frustrated when their children are getting quarantined, and there is no additional support for them. It's all asynchronous work during that time period. So just as, an expression of what I'm hearing from the community, that might be something, whether or not in September or, later on we discuss, but that frustration of no support for those students in quarantine.
Right, which is one of the things that I think all superintendents and central offices were articulating to DESE is we're not seeing any school-based spread. And we're having to quarantine all of these students based on the regulation. So to the credit of DESE, they did come back with the revised definition at the 3 feet. And again, we're closely monitoring that to ensure that we don't have any school-based spread now with keeping the 3 feet. But we've seen in the internal data a significant decline in the number of close contacts with the new definition. So we're hopeful that that eases some of that angst, because we did hear that and have been looking at that as well.
And that just made me think too, so like for September, is this a time for reflection that if whatever happens, is there a way that the kids can still log on to Zoom or Google Meet? I know it's not ideal, I get it, but like that they are having still live instruction. Because I know they have to quarantine if they've been exposed or have it.
Thank you both. Anything else? No? Okay.
Okay, thank you. May is also the meeting that we announced the last day of school. So the last day of school for the 2021 school year will be June 21st. Also for preschool with a different schedule, Tuesday the June 15th for cohort A and Thursday June 17th for cohort B in our early learning center.
All right, thank you. On to unfinished business.
Thank you. The superintendent recommends the approval of the 2020-2021 school calendar early release days for a second reading.
So moved.
Oh, second.
Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, new business.
Thank you. Our first is policy. So we have a review of policies from our May 3rd, 2021 subcommittee meeting for a first reading.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Let's have discussion. Dr. Dana, if you want to present anything, or do you have anything to?
Sure. I will give a brief overview, and then from our policy subcommittee, we did have Dave Thompson and Arthur Scamas be part of the subcommittee and for this meeting here. So the process, in April, administrators reviewed and made recommendations. We reviewed the policy looking at equity and our courageous caring. We look for alignment in the policy of where it's included with student handbooks, employee handbook, coaches packet, school committee policy manual, and our MASC model policies also. Then on May 3rd, the policy subcommittee came together. It was a remote meeting. We reviewed, and the school committee members, the subcommittee made recommendations. And here we are this evening on May 10th for our first reading. There's a chart for the school committee members. There are 10 areas that we looked at, and this is the next step after the independent investigation through the school committee and the investigator of the policy. So we really wanted to go back and take a look at the policies to make sure where are they located, did they need to be updated, are they accurate where they are, and then the second step after this will be our communication with our faculty, which would be those days before school starts in the late August, early September. So I could read the areas: non-discrimination, our civil rights and safety, relationships with students, student welfare, staff conduct, social media, bullying prevention, prohibition of hazing, student eligibility, chemical health, our alcohol, drugs, and tobacco use, and our coach's code of ethics.
Okay, there's a lot there. We all had copies of all of it. Arthur, as the remaining member of the policy subcommittee, do you want to speak to this?
There's not really much more to add other than what Lisa stated and what's in that program. I mean, a lot of the policies weren't. There's a few that weren't changed. There was a couple where we adopted the MASC policies, which were more comprehensive in certain instances. But I mean, I think what you see is there is it's pretty straightforward as far as I can see.
Mm-hmm. Are there questions for either Dr. Dana or Arthur about the suggested policy changes? No? Okay, I'm hearing none. It does seem like this is, a direct, I would say and what I'm hearing is that this is in a response to recognition of things where we needed to be either more clear, more direct, to fully make sure our policies were as comprehensive as we wanted them to be in light of things that came to light in the last year or so. So It seemed like a very sensible approach, and I appreciate Arthur. And Dave, I'm sure you're watching us, because so thank you as well, and thank you, Dr. Dana. This is for a first reading, which means we'll get a chance to look at this again next month before we take a final vote on it. Any other comments at this time before we vote? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. It carries. Dr. Dana.
Thank you. Next under new business is the MASC resolution for anti-racism. And similar, I think about 2 months ago, we had a community member parent ask us about an MASC resolution about MCAS. And this is a similar piece where we have a parent that asked us about this resolution, and Mr. Crane and I were able to meet with the parent through Zoom last week, and Eric was also our school committee rep at the meeting back in November with MASC at the delegate meeting. So we thought this would be an opportunity, as we talked about earlier, having diversity, equity, and inclusion being one of our 3 priorities for having engaged students and having an equitable learning environment for all of our students, and opportunity to have the school committee as a whole look at the resolution. And I would say that the pieces that are there are all pieces that we are working on, from hiring, professional development, and curriculum with our students.
Just bear with me one sec. It does not appear that the resolution itself is attached, Lisa,
Okay, let's.
unless it may just be my screen.
I believe there's
There-
two
it's
links.
in the-
There are 2 links, so it'll be the
Second
second
one,
link
it's
there.
in the-
So if you go back to the agenda,
It's number 3 in the,
and then this. right-
Anti-racist
Yes.
resolution, okay.
use the button.
Yeah, I'm going to try that. Oh, there we go.
You'll learn about
If
computer
we just keep tapping it, it usually will open for us.
Oh, technology. Yeah, this
That
was
was
one of the
resolution
resolutions that was adopted. There were 5 where basically there was no serious discussion. It was just adopted sort of as a group because there was no objection to it. I am content that this is something that we certainly could and should pass as a school committee, a similar resolution. My intention would be to present it at the next school committee meeting in form, and then we can take a vote on it. But this would give a little notice to everybody on the committee to read through it. You don't necessarily have to read through it tonight, but it's basically very straightforward, as the MASC found, the MASC. And it basically talks about our responsibility to provide district staff, school committee members, professional development in diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have a responsibility to equip students with their civil rights, obtaining a free and appropriate public education, and that we should create a welcoming community for all students, that every district will commit to recruiting and retaining a diverse and culturally responsive teaching workforce, and will examine our policies, which it seems like we have already done. So basically, what the MASC said was that it would be resolved that all school districts in the Commonwealth should guarantee that racist practices are eradicated and diversity, equity, and inclusion is embedded in practice for our students, families, faculty, and staff. It seems like this, or some form of this, is something that we should all, I would guess, be able to agree to. But so what I'll try and do is work with Lisa so that we have a written resolution next month that we can talk about and vote on as the committee's pleasure. Does that make sense to everybody? And does anybody have any questions?
So are you adapting this, or is this the resolution you're going to propose?
This or something very similar will be the resolution
Okay.
I propose. This is not drafted specifically for Danvers. It's a general one. Actually, if you read the language, it says all school districts this, all school districts that. So while I think we certainly agree with it, I would want to try and come up with something that is more directed to us. But in substance, this would be it. That make sense to everyone?
Good, yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dr. Dana.
Okay, homeschool proposal. The superintendent recommends the approval of the notice of intent for home education for the remainder of the 2021 school year. There's one proposal in your packet.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Carries.
Thank you. For this meeting, we do not have any fundraising or field trip requests, so we'll move on to the public hearing and vote on school choice.
Okay. Just for some context, every year we are required to have a public hearing and take a vote on whether Danvers will accept school choice students. We have typically not done so, at least in the 20 years I've been on the school committee, because usually space issues, and my understanding is once you commit to a student coming into Danvers, they can stay at every level as long as they wish to stay. So basically, we've never felt that we had the space to allocate from K through 12 for students who might want to come here. Do you feel any differently about that at this point, Dr. Dana, or no?
Thank you. It stays the same. So the superintendent recommends the school committee to vote not to accept school choice students for the 2021-2022 school year.
Do I have a?
So moved.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Dr. Dana?
Thank you. Our order of business communications, we have every month our North Shore Education Consortium, and this past month, as all of us are doing, the board voted the FY22 budget and the tuition rates, which are included in your packet for your information.
Okay, any questions for Dr. Dana? Nope, hearing none. All righty. Moving on to legislation. I have no report tonight, but I am hoping to have Sally Kearns attend the meeting very soon and give us an update on what's happening at the State House. Subcommittee and liaison updates. Deep. Who was Deep?
Mary Beth.
Oh, well. All right, so we will table the Deep update until next month. Danvers Cares.
The Danvers Cares for this month, I think before you, everyone has a copy of the latest Teen Health and Safety Guide, which was printed. I believe it's maybe 4 pages longer than last year's, which is great. It is also available online as well. There are PDF forms, and so certainly good to distribute. If people haven't seen this before, it is a very kind of interesting concept. A lot of really timely articles written by a lot of folks in our community. So this isn't something that's produced on a national level and then we just cycle in articles. This is really written from a Danvers perspective on a lot of unique areas. I will like to call the attention to sort of the back page for health and treatment resources. There are a lot of questions that parents might have for counseling or treatment locators or even insurance eligibility. So that is in here as well for folks to take a look at, but definitely something to be proud of that's produced every year.
Yeah, there's a lot of great information in here, I must say.
And then Lisa, is there any update on the next director? Do we want to talk about that, or?
We're getting closer. We did a finalist interview this afternoon, so we'll be working on that over the next week, and we'll be able to present at the June Danvers Cares meeting and then at the school committee meeting in June.
Perfect, great, thank you. That's it.
All right, thank you, Jeff. We have CPAC.
Thank you. CPAC, their next meeting, they will have sort of a board meeting prior to it, but they'll have a presentation with Jim Sullivan, our new technology director on internet safety. Okay. So we're sharing that information with all of our schools through the weekly newsletters, emails to our families, and the CPAC is asking parents to sign up, and that way they will then get the link to that meeting.
And forgive me if you already mentioned this, what is the date of that, do we know?
I did not mention that, so thank you. May 20th, next week.
Okay, great. Thank you. Policy Subcommittee, we already heard from Mr. Skarmas. And on the Human Rights and Inclusion Committee, I attended. The meeting was on April 22nd, actually. And there was an update from the Education Subcommittee. I basically talked about our subcommittee meeting, and they're very impressed with everything that you are doing and the long list of items, Lisa, that the administration is working on. They were very impressed with our student representatives from the Diversity Club. You know, Charles couldn't say, anyone who attended couldn't say enough good stuff about those students, so we thank them very much. There was discussion about the Juneteenth proclamation. The Pride flag ceremony is likely going to be on June 3rd at 4:30, and the exact way that that will look and where it'll be are still sort of up for discussion. There was some discussion about perhaps a vigil and or demonstration to show support to our Asian American population for the things that have happened over the course of the last few months, which, as we've all seen, some are pretty horrendous. So there'll be more to come on that. And the other thing I would say is that Charles Desmond again raised the idea of how important it is for us to be looking at ways to improve our potential for diversity hiring, and is certainly willing to help us with any information he can provide about resources for that. And I know that's something you're already working on. So basically, a good meeting. Challenges remain challenges, and we keep trying to do what we can. So thank you.
Thank you, and we appreciate the collaboration and the partnership.
Yes.
We were able to, Mary and I followed up with Charles Desmond on Friday, and
Great.
working on some of those college connections at the higher ed level that he has a wealth of experience with.
Excellent, excellent. Minutes, our new secretary, Mr. Scott.
This is exciting. I move to approve and release the minutes from the April 12th, 2021 regular meeting.
I need a second.
Second.
I have a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Carries. We have the budget. Mr. Taverna.
Before you have the April budget report, you'll start to see some overages in certain lines, and then areas identified will have budget surplus to offset those overages, and we remain on track to end the year with a balanced budget.
Excellent. Personnel, Mr. Taverna.
Just miscellaneous appointments and leaves of absences. You will see this an increase. We've hired our first staff member for the 2021-22 school year already, and we're starting that process over the next few weeks of making sure that we have our staff for next year.
Excellent. Our next meeting is on June 14th. Before then, we have the Skull session, I think on Thursday afternoon, and I'll attend that. Is that live or is that Zoom?
Here, yes.
It is here, okay,
it's
perfect.
in person, yes.
And town meeting would be the following Monday.
Next Monday. right?
Monday, the
And
17th.
Is there any limitation on staff attending, or is it going to be a free-for-all?
There'll be kind of invitation, but if you'd like to come, are you a school committee, are you a town meeting member, Mr. Crane? No. You're not a town meeting member, right? So you'd be
No,
welcome
I'm
to
not a
attend as
town.
the
Arthur
chair.
is anyone else a town meeting member? And Alice is, yeah.
Okay, so we'll work with the town manager's office, but there will be limited seating for staff and other committee members based on the field house being used to ensure social distancing. So we'll have a full field house like last year, so there won't be a ton of extra.
All right, is that meeting in this room as well?
No, that's in the field house
Field
at
house,
Danvers High
I'm sorry.
School.
Okay. And, all right, I think that's it. So, again, congratulations to our new members on your first meeting. And thanks for all you contributed.
Thank you for the warm welcome.
And, we hope you'll come back next month.
We will, we promise.
And with that, we're going to have Arthur's favorite motion.
It used to be Dave's favorite motion, but I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Good night, Danvers.